Mark, great to have you on.
Hi, Ryan. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Very good, very good. So, Mark, for the people that don't know, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? I suppose give it a bit of a background of some of your work, and we can take it from there.
Sure. My name's Mark Hickman. I'm the Director of Digital Strategy here with One Sotheby's Luxury International Realty in Miami, Florida. I've been here, Ryan, almost 6 years now. And altogether, I have over 20 years experience in marketing and digital, and in real estate luxury marketing. I've been doing this for about 7, 8 years. I love what I do. It's a great industry, especially here in Florida. After travel and tourism, there's no better industry to work in that's more innovative and exciting than real estate and development.
Hmm.
Growing up, my mom was a real estate agent and my grandfather was a real estate developer. So I've been around this industry since I was a child growing up here in Florida. So it's exciting. And especially since COVID and the pandemic, I mean, real estate has just exploded here in Florida. Everybody wants to live here because of all the great tax benefits and the good weather when there's no hurricanes, knock on wood. But it's an exciting industry to work in. And that's a little bit about myself.
Yeah, love it. So I think that leads in nicely to my first question. You obviously said you've been in the marketing space for 20 years. So you've seen a lot of fads, a lot of hypes, a lot of marketing revolutions.
Yeah.
Today, since obviously it's such a hype topic right now, I'd love to focus in on AI and obviously a bit of luxury real estate. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
So when ChatGPT came out, when all this AI stuff really started gaining traction and kind of, I suppose, mainstream attention, what was your reaction then and there? And if it was just another fad, when did it become a real tool for marketing for you?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ryan. As everything comes into play, you're always questioning technology, right? I remember a few years ago, right after the COVID pandemic, it was all about the metaverse. I don't know if you guys remember this. It was,
Yeah.
we even auctioned a house on the metaverse, and then we sold a
Mm.
physical copy here, in one of our neighborhoods, and it was a great PR stunt. But I mean, have you heard of the metaverse since 3 or 4 years ago? I mean, it's kind of disappeared, right? I mean, so
Mm.
AI kind of started right after the pandemic, right after COVID, and I would hear of it, and I wasn't so sure of it. I would log into ChatGPT here and there. That is my chosen AI tool.
Mm.
But it wasn't, Ryan, until maybe about, I would say, 9 to 10 months ago,
Mm.
um, that I really started to utilize it. And, it's become sort of my virtual assistant, sort of my co-pilot right now, in my work in digital. It's never going to replace me. There
Mm.
are some, it's not perfect exactly right now at this moment. And it's funny, I'll give an example of AI and ChatGPT. My wife is a family attorney, and she actually currently has a case against an opposing counsel. It's actually a client. He doesn't have
Mhm.
legal representation. He's actually using ChatGPT as his
Yeah.
representation, his legal representation. And they had a mediation yesterday, and she said it was terrible. The judge was telling him that he wasn't staying on course, and there were a lot of things he was saying that really had
Mm.
nothing to do with the case and the legalities of that case. So as exciting as ChatGPT and AI can be, and it is extremely valuable to me, it's not in any way, shape, or form right now ready to take the place
Mm.
of a professional, right? Of an attorney or of a medical professional, or even of a marketer such as myself.
Mm.
I do think, though, that the ChatGPTs of the world and the open AIs have really been able to capitalize and optimize content and writing. That actually is how ChatGPT has been the biggest benefit for me from, as far as ad creative
Mhm.
ideation. I mean, there's some SEO optimization that it's helped me with. There's some audience modeling. For example, we use a lot of generative AI to quickly test messaging angles for our luxury buyer personas, right? Or refine search ad copy
Mhm.
at scale. without sacrificing the tone. So I do love Chat GPT and AI. I think, while it can't take the place of certain things, it's great for assisting, right? Or being that co-pilot that I need sometimes when I'm just really busy and need to throw out some ideas. It's helped me with headlines and call to actions. It's great for testing different messaging angles and, depending on who my luxury buyer persona is, where they're coming from. It's great. We also, though, used, Ryan, AI-driven live chat on some of our product websites. And after optimizing some of the conversational flow, we actually saw around a 20% lift in lead conversions. So, AI has been powerful in that way. It shows how, when you personalize some of the AI chats, it can feel organic and immediate, and it can impact performance. And I'm sure overall in the future, it's going to reshape visibility, but it's not going to take the place of you or me. At least I hope not.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fingers
I suppose
crossed.
that leads again, into my next question here. So I know there's kind of two camps around AI. The AI is taking all our jobs and replacing us. And then there's the side, which I think myself and yourself, of course, would be on, of AI is giving either, solo individuals or teams of individuals near infinite more leverage. So can you, I suppose, run me through obviously what side you're on, because I could be wrong here, of course. And then do you want to run through, I suppose, your argument for your opinion on whether it's enabling us more or is it putting us out of the job?
I don't think it's going to put us out of a job. I think it's just an assistant. It's enabling us. Everything that I get from ChatGPT, I'm always having to edit it or look at it from the perspective of what I know is really going to resonate with my luxury personas and my audience, especially in digital marketing. There are certain intricacies to each tool that work best for each vertical that right now AI can't solve. It's best for solving, like I'd mentioned, copy and creative and content ideas. But when it comes to certain intricacies and certain settings within each of these ad tools, whether it's programmatic or Google search, nothing knows better on how to attract a luxury buyer or that particular persona and who you're talking to better than you yourself. I don't want to give away my secrets, but there are certain things I do, for example, Ryan, within Google search, certain settings and campaigns that I have to go in and tweak, certain negative keywords, certain, household income targeting levels that AI, and I know there's an AI component within Google, but it has not been able to solve that for me for attracting a high intent customer who's looking for these luxury real estate properties. When it comes to keywords and, like I said, headlines and things like that, it's great, but it's not at this point in time going to be able to replace what I do and what you do either. So
yeah, I'm very much of the mindset of you need that foundational taste. I think that's the best word for it, because I don't know if you're a great cook or anything, but if we had no idea about cooking or food, we can't really judge a fantastic dish from an outstanding dish. We can't judge good from great. I kind of view this in the same light. If something I'm an absolute beginner at, it'll get me to good, and I just trust that it's good. But when it comes to marketing, SEO, like you said, ad creation, I know that we know the difference between good, great, and fantastic. And that's where you need that human level filter, I suppose.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. I love it about the good, great analogy, because it's so true. It can get you to that level of maybe basic or good, but to get that to that level of greatness, of really true success, AI just hasn't been able to do that. And that's also the example I gave earlier with the legal perspective of this case my wife was seeing. This gentleman is determined on using ChatGPT as his legal counsel, and maybe it can give him the basics, but there's no way it can get him to win the case or to the point of excellence or success, because AI is just not at that point right now. And I don't know if it ever will be.
Okay.
If it did, it would scare me, Ryan. I don't know.
Mm.
Hopefully,
Okay.
yeah. But I do think it's valuable too in some regard, like I've mentioned earlier, with some of the things that it can do. Right now we're really big now. We're looking at AI SEO and AI search.
Mm.
When someone goes to ChatGPT, I mean, they are getting a lot of the market share for searches. As we all know, Google is the big one, followed by
Mm.
maybe Bing. There are some other ones, but ChatGPT, especially as it relates to luxury real estate, a lot of folks are utilizing ChatGPT in their real estate search. Over 90% of searches start online, and most of those
Mhm.
are on Google. But people are actively looking more at ChatGPT and AI, as well as
Mhm.
social media, I'm a big believer in Meta and social media as well.
Mhm.
But it's interesting to see where we take ChatGPT and the LLMs and the AI SEO experience, right? So it'll
Yeah.
be fun to
Okay. I'm going to make a pretty abrupt segue here to luxury real estate. I suppose we'll end up segueing our way back here.
see.
So
Sounds good.
one of the big things I really wanted to kind of pick your brain on, I suppose, was in the luxury real estate space where there's agents who've been doing this 30, 40 years. They've been doing it longer than I've even been alive.
Yeah.
So, and they are killing it with referrals, word of mouth, networking, in person, print. What is your argument, maybe even internal within Sotheby's, for what you do? And do you still see, or I suppose, what percentage do you see? So, say, is it 20% in person referrals, word of mouth, 80% digital, or vice versa?
Mhm.
What is your argument for the digital side for
Sure.
agents who maybe are in it 20, 30, 40 years?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I go through that a lot because in my current role here with Sotheby's, I straddle the new development division, but then also our traditional branded brokerage agent residential marketing side, right? And so, I do see more and more agents coming to me asking for advice on helping them with their branding and to help them move a big listing. We had an agent recently who had 2 or 3 months left in her listing agreement before it expired, right? And so
Mhm.
her sellers actually helped fund a digital campaign that I had presented the strategy on. And after the campaign ran for a week or two, she called me and told me to pause the campaign because the listing actually went under contract. And I kind of heard through the grapevine that some of what I had done digitally did help move the needle to get this
Mm.
listing under contract. It was a $15 million property in Fort Lauderdale. And I have my formula and my strategy that I used, and I executed the campaign, and
Mhm.
it sold. And so, I know I've mentioned this before, that digital is the new front door in real estate, right? And I know
Mhm.
you asked me, what do you mean by that? And what I meant is that buyers' first interaction with a property is almost always digital, right? Before they ever
Mhm.
call an agent or step foot in any model unit or sales gallery, they're online actively searching. So, an agent's digital presence is their first impression. It's the handshake and the invitation. But not to say that digital is ever going to take the place of a real estate agent, because there is a lot of formalities and documentation and
Mhm.
qualification to play where you need that person. It's sort of they say in that phrase, it takes a village, right, to raise a
Mm.
child. Well, it takes a village to sell a property, especially at this magnitude of a $15 million property. And I know we just sold I believe a $50 million property here in Miami to The Weekend, who is
Mm.
everybody knows of The Weekend, and that was the
Yeah.
Worldwide Group, one of our amazing real estate teams here, Eddie and Roland. And I know they promoted the listing on social. I don't know if they spent a lot doing digital marketing, but it sold, right?
Mhm.
And they obviously were part of that transaction, and they had to walk. And it was buyer and seller representation. I think they
Mm.
represent on both sides of the deal. So, social media is a big thing. YouTube videos are a big thing. That's all part of digital marketing. So I'm sure they invested in that. But you still needed them as a team to help get the transaction and closing and the mortgage brokers and the titles and all of the details that go into making a transaction happen. You need people. So that's never going to change.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I do want to circle back just to a little thing you said there. I got word through the grapevine that some of my work had moved the needle. So a huge part of what we do, well, me, myself, our team, but then we as marketers as well. So speaking of yourself and myself, it's attribution. So obviously with luxury real estate and just, I suppose, real estate as a whole, it doesn't even need to be luxury, but I think this, call it a problem, becomes more and more, magnified as you go up in property value, maybe, is attribution. So we always say, was it the first time they saw you on LinkedIn? Do they have your business card? Did they get some print from you? Or were they stalking your website or stalking your social media? And was it the first touch? Was it the 10th, 50th, 100th? So how do you go about in your campaigns? How do you go about accurately attributing maybe percentages towards channels?
Yeah. I have the tools that I use. I'm obviously going into each of the tactics and the channels themselves. When it comes to my reporting, I'm always looking at cost per action, cost per lead. I'm looking at setting my campaigns, optimizing everything towards conversions for the most part. If it's a new project, there'll obviously be the awareness component of the funnel where you can have a little bit more fun and do certain things that are a bit more irreverent in nature when it comes to digital. But ultimately, these clients, these sellers, these developers, they want, active buyers, right? They want leads. And so the best way to do that is to set up most of your campaigns for those digital mediums that are going to really drive conversions, right? So that's sort of what I look at. We do have tools that we track. We have a tool called Spark, which is a sales CRM. I also am a big believer in a program called CallRail. It's a software called CallRail. So I can actually see each lead name, each lead form that came in by source, which keyword they came in, their name, their phone number, their email address, what time. So that's a lead form. There's also the phone. Obviously, I have phone extensions in all of my Google campaigns. Some of my print ads contain, phone tracking numbers. So you can track all of that through CallRail. And then we cross-reference what we see in CallRail with Spark. So our sales team members of each of our developments use Spark, right? That's sort of their nurture tool. It's the way that they reach out, that they're alerted when a lead comes in. So between cross-referencing what I see in my Spark CRM with my CallRail software, along with looking at my channels and my tools directly going into Google Ads, going into Meta, going into my programmatic dashboards, between all of that combined, Ryan, I'm able to see the attribution of what sources and what tools are really moving the needle. So that's sort of my view on attribution as it relates to luxury real estate. One last thing just to point out is in programmatic, programmatic to me is a big deal. And a lot of folks are like, well, you never know where your impressions are being spent. There's a lot of wasted impressions. But to me, programmatic helps build awareness and it also retargets. And in programmatic, there's something called view-through conversions, which I'm sure you've heard about. It's basically what a view-through conversion is if that channel programmatic is given credit, right? So somebody may not convert right away after seeing the banner ad. They may leave, take a phone call, get up, whatever, but then they'll go back to the website somehow. And they may go back to the website from Google search or direct, or maybe from social. But the programmatic banner ad is always given credit for that initial, exposure, right? And that's what we call a view-through conversion. So I think programmatic is important because you can also target, and target high net worth individuals through public tax records that they have and zip code data that even Google Display doesn't allow, So I'm a big believer in programmatic as part of my attribution. it does. It gets, you know, a percentage of my allocated budget for each of the campaigns I run. It's important to give credit where credit is due. You know, it's called addressable programmatic. It's targeting high net worth individuals on premium websites. And, you know, it helps continue the conversation across devices. You can geo-fence as well through Programmatic, which is a big deal. Developers and sellers of luxury properties love to be involved in geo-fencing. So that's exciting.
I suppose just for anyone watching that doesn't know what programmatic is or geofencing, John, you just give them the layman terms of what it is, how it works, and why you use it, I suppose, just so we don't have people scratching their heads with these random marketing.
Yeah, I know, right? All these marketing terms. No, but programmatic, what programmatic is, it runs display level ads basically across devices, targeting high net worth individuals, targeting different audiences that Google Display doesn't have access to. For example, I can even target people of a net worth of $4 million, $6 million, $10, $14 million. You can layer in folks who are interested in luxury travel, luxury automobiles. You can layer in all of this targeting data that, again, I point out to Google and Meta because there are laws here in the United States around fair housing that there are certain rules on Google and Meta around targeting. There's rules that you can't target by certain criteria, certain behavioral, psychographic, demographic data. But on programmatic, for some reason, these big publishing companies like the Trade Desk and Simplify, they've been able to do this still. And that helps, you know, move high intent audiences through the funnel. So it's great when somebody's exposed to our properties through programmatic banner ads. And they're basically, Ryan, the standard IAB size display banner ads. You can, you know, create animations. You can actually create banners up to 250 megabytes, which are pretty large size banner ads. So you can do a lot of cool things creatively with them to really get the attention of that high net worth individual. So that's an example. And those banner ads would be, for example, on the wallstreetjournal.com, the financialtimes.com, reuters.com, the newyorktimes.com. You can create an allow list so that your banner ads only show up on certain websites targeting these high net worth individuals who are in market for luxury real estate, right? So that's one aspect of programmatic. And the second thing is geofencing, which is really something that's been exciting. So what that is it's when someone attends an event, such as here in South Florida, we have the Art Basel Fair every early December, where 80 to 90 of the wealthiest people on the planet attend. You get all the big art collectors, people in town from London and New York, Manchester, Beijing, you know, all over, and they're here in Florida and they're attending this art fair. They're walking around looking at art. You can actually target them through a device level ID if they cross a certain line based on satellite plat line data, attach a device level ID, and then start to serve that person ads. And then the biggest point when we see conversions and when actions start to happen is the retargeting phase. So for example, say somebody is at this art fair here in Miami. They're most likely busy, right? Looking at art, right? Looking at sculpture. They're not actually searching and clicking on your ad. But we've been able to attach a device level ID on their mobile phone. And then when they go home to New York, or they go back to Chicago or London or Manchester, we can then continue to serve them ads for 30 to 60 days after the event is over. So that is when the actions and the awareness and, you know, you'd hope a conversion would actually start to happen. On the US Open tennis tournament, we actually just did Wimbledon in London earlier this summer. And we were getting ready to do Art Basel here in South Florida. We're doing the Frieze Art Fair next week in London as well, and doing the Mayfair District in London for a couple products, a couple projects that we have on our new development division. So it's really exciting. And we've seen success from it, you know.
Okay. So something I've obviously picked up on just in the last couple of minutes we've been talking, a lot of the things we've gone over have been hyper targeted. So obviously, only people that have attended said event, people who are above a certain net worth, people who are, you know, very, very specific targeting. So I suppose, could you give a breakdown or your opinion or a use case for what you've just mentioned there? Super, super specific, hyper targeted. Obviously,
Mhm.
your cost per lead and cost per action is going to be, what you could say sky high, versus a more spray and pray, spaghetti at the wall type approach. Is there room for both, or is it situational dependent? Is it market dependent? Is it seasonal? Do we have arguments on both sides, or are you only
Mhm.
favoring specific?
Yeah, no, you'd be surprised. My cost per lead is actually below average benchmark in real estate, which is usually between $300 and $400 per lead. My cost per lead comes in usually between $50 to $100.
Hmm.
So, along those hyper targeted level approaches, I'm also a big believer in Meta, right? Meta, we all know Meta, they own Facebook
Hmm.
and Instagram. And so Meta and social media help humanize the brands of these properties. And on Meta, you can't target to the level that you can on programmatic, right? Or geofencing. So you are casting that wider net. You're hoping that somebody sees the ad, and through your creative, you have the starting from price point. So hopefully that starting price point will, help weed out some of the window shoppers and
Mm.
some of the dreamers out there. But between Meta and, Google search, I'm a huge believer in Google search. Um, we've been able to have a very healthy cost per lead at a level that you'd probably be surprised at. I've seen a lot of other vendors utilize big media, expensive media, and it generates a lead maybe here and there, and their cost per lead is so high. But I've been
Mhm.
able to be very nimble and with my spend. I'll say that.
Mm.
We're not spending millions and millions of dollars on each of these projects. My budget levels are in the maybe six figures, and so I've been able to sort of through this formula get a really good cost per action and cost per lead. So
Okay. I hear you. And
yeah.
then I wanted to go a bit more broad, I suppose, and just a more high level question. So,
Mhm.
say if we take all our paid channels, obviously we spoke about, um, Meta, Instagram, Google versus organic. If we can pick one from both for luxury, let's say we have a
Mhm.
$5 million property, pretty much anywhere in the US, a $5 million property is 5 million.
Mhm.
What is your one organic and what is your one paid channel?
Well, I mean, organic, Ryan, do you mean like, for example, organic social?
Yes, let's say we can have SEO, social, anything that is not pay
Yeah.
per click, pay per
Yeah.
impression.
Yeah, no, I think organic is important. SEO, having, excuse me, blog content, video content. I mean, I will tell you this, studies show that listings that have videos attached to them
Hmm.
usually enjoy a lift in conversions by 20%. So when a high net worth individual has a video or has viewed a video related to a $5 million property, they are that more likely, 20% more likely to take action on that property. So I'm a huge believer in video. So video could
Hmm.
be an organic media, right? Um, a YouTube organic video, your social presence, having um, the content there, property tours, talking about the lifestyle of the property, the amenities, everything that it offers, I think is great. On social too, as you know, trending music is popular. So having a great video that's, has a great soundtrack to it, can really work wonders for driving the needle organically. As far as
Hmm.
SEO, obviously SEO does take a little bit of time to ramp up. As you know, it can take sometimes months. And so if you have all of your SEO foundational elements like your meta tags and schema markups and alt tags and meta titles, all of that takes time, right? And a lot of
Mm.
these listings actually now are on market a lot longer, right, than they used to be. I mean, right after COVID, our listings in Florida would just fly off the shelves because everybody wanted to live here. But now listings are out there longer. It's a buyer's market. So you do have an example, you do have the opportunity, if you will, to really invest in SEO more. and create content, right, around that listing. So I'm a big believer, like I just mentioned, in video, creating social content, an editorial calendar around an agent, a listing. All of that stuff is really going to try to help move the needle more long term. You can also create blog content around articles related to the listing. There's a lot of fun things. AI can help someone with that. If an agent needs help and they're not the best copywriter or writer in the world, then by all means use ChatGPT. So
Yeah. And then on the paid side?
Paid, yeah. So to really move the needle on paid for a listing at 5 million, you need to invest in paid social and Google search and programmatic. It's hard for me to choose because all of those are really key to moving the needle. There's sort of a formula. The algorithms really work well together when you combine Google search with programmatic with paid social on Meta. Just that full funnel and getting that exposure across all those channels really work wonders. That's what I've seen. Google search, programmatic display, and paid social on Meta. So those are my three.
Those are your top
for paid.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Much, Ryan. I don't know if you wanted to talk about email, but I think email is important too to move high intent audiences through the funnel as well. There's a lot of things you can do. A lot of agents and developers, they don't need to spend a ton of money constantly doing something. You need to attract leads, especially. It's Google search, programmatic, and paid social. And then once you get the leads, to really nurture that lead, don't forget about email. Email is a huge driver of moving those audiences and nurturing the audiences. It's great for high value content, sending them an invitation to visit the sales gallery or to make an appointment to do a walkthrough, whatever that is. I think email, I guess, would be considered organic as well. So
yeah. Okay. Interesting. Right. I'm gonna circle back to AI. I just wanted to make sure we get some real estate talk in before we just go too deep on AI. But
okay,
I know before we mentioned obviously content creation, creative, obviously with image gen and everything like that. Apart from content creation, apart from copy, what would you say for you at least is the biggest use case for AI in your workflow? Is it data analysis? Is it what is it? Apart from obviously copy, asset creation.
That's a good question. And we're actually right now undergoing an experiment to combine AI with the Spark CRM to see what types of prompts we can build into our sales CRM that are really going to help us with our workflows and our jobs, for example, and working really close with the sales team members to pull data that might not be so accessible or easy to get to, but through using AI and prompting AI to, for example, say, show me the last 10 contracts that were put in place on property A. And it just actually pulls the data from the CRM and gives you that information, in real time. That's an example of something that we're hoping that AI will help us with. Or, for example, send me the 20 leads that came in from, that the agents haven't followed up on. Because a lot of time what we do is we help the agents or we coach the agents to make sure that they follow up with these leads in a timely manner. And in our CRM of Spark, there's different labels that a sales team member can label a lead, right? Like engaged, warm, cold, under reservation, under contract, for example. So a lot of times we'll want to pull data from our CRM around these different labels of these leads. And it's not so easy to do, but we're right now testing an AI component towards this that we're hoping the interface will allow us to readily be able to pull the data in real time and also input data. I know the agents themselves, for example, when an agent gets a lead at an event, and they the way it is now, they have to manually put the lead into the sales CRM. if there's a mobile component, a more mobile friendly way, we're testing that as well through AI for an agent to be able, through the mobile web component, put in, I met John Smith at the Wimbledon tennis tournament. He's interested in a 3-bedroom and his price point is £4 million. Being able to put that data into the CRM in a very seamless manner right now is a little bit cumbersome and manual in nature. So we're testing right now, all being able to do all that through AI.
Okay. So again, along the lines of, a full-blown, assistant, a time saver, not a massive, I suppose, skill magnifier, but just a massive time saver. That's,
Right.
in your opinion, the highest leverage task right now. Yeah.
Right. Another couple other things that I can mention to you, Ryan, about AI, the way I use it, other than copying content, it does sometimes help me with strategy, and then also sometimes with sort of a media planning channel mix. But I will say, when it does give me that data, I have to really inspect and review everything with a fine-tooth comb, because sometimes it'll give me ideas and things that just won't make sense. Like to your brilliant point earlier about, it can give you something good, but it can't give you something great. So you have to always put your own spin into it and make sure that you review what it gives you in relation to your digital strategy, for example, or your marketing mix, or whatever it might be. It might actually encourage you to try something that I know in luxury real estate won't work. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And now let's talk about the individual agent. Let's assume they don't have any of your new tools, any of your AI CRMs. Obviously, we can assume level one is agent uses ChatGPT, they make some content, they get some ideas, and they post it up. And, one is better than zero. Posting content is better than not posting content most of the time. Depends on what you post.
Yeah.
What would you say, what would you say right now, with tools that exist to your knowledge, non-proprietary? So say if you guys have a, working MVP internal, without all of that, what would you call or classify the most, AI enabled agent? What would their workflows look like? What would they be using AI for the most? Is there tools or tips or strategies that you can give them right now? Maybe it's not a Sotheby's agent. Maybe they're breaking into luxury, but they don't have a huge budget. What is their max AI stack to save time and to generate more interest, generate more eyeballs on their listings, and ultimately get more commission into their own pockets?
Yeah, I think property descriptions are one thing that's important. Embedding their property descriptions with very keyword rich driven content, which again, you always kind of have to cross-reference against Google Keyword Search Planner, in my opinion. But just, telling ChatGPT, telling OpenAI, give me a great property description that fits in this category with keyword rich data. You can also, Ryan, have an agent go into ChatGPT to write social media captions for properties. That's another key thing I think is very beneficial for, any agent out there. Social media is so big right now just because of the visual nature of social media and the aspirational quality of social media. It sort of humanizes not just an agent, but it humanizes the brand, and which would, this case would be the property. So, AI can really help an agent when it comes to social media, utilizing how to write copy for LinkedIn, for example, how to talk to more of a B2B audience, how to talk more to a luxury audience, how to talk to someone who's actively in market for the first time, right? That young married couple who's maybe looking to invest in real estate for the first time. How do you speak to that persona? I think that's great, and I think that really could benefit an agent, in that nature. All of these other more advanced things, are great for folks like myself or, yourself, who are marketers, or, who are, hold positions at a variety of companies. But I think with, keeping it simple and not really being overwhelmed by AI is also a nice approach to take for agents when it comes to AI. I know a lot of folks have said, even with contracts, that
Mm.
AI helps them draft contracts. But then you'll talk to the attorneys out there and you'll hear, no, make sure that you double check and review everything when it comes to contracts, and that could be rentals or any type of contract, any kind of
Mm.
even listing agreements. I wouldn't depend on AI to draft a listing, agreement,
Yeah.
give you maybe a template, but you need to count on your brokerage, for that listing agreement, and even with contracts, So there are certain things that it can't do. But, I know what I was talking about earlier was more the property descriptions, more of the social media content. It's more around the copy and content. That's a great thing that an agent could use AI for. I think that would really help. It help move those audiences. What is it about a property that's really going to help resonate? For example, if a listing is on the water, how can I craft content around a waterfront listing to really move the needle with somebody who owns a yacht, who
Mm.
can, park the yacht at the home? All of those little intricacies, and you have to look at it. Maybe you're more an agent who specializes in, equestrian properties or condos versus single family homes. All of these things, AI, if you give it the right prompt, can really help you move the needle with drafting great copy and content around.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. I think your point around not getting overwhelmed is a big one, because I suppose, again, for yourself and myself, it's kind of nature of the job, part of the role, to
Yeah.
explore and test and trial run all these new tools. But if you
Right.
are, if you are an agent, you only have so much time. It's not
Exactly.
really your job to trial run all these tools, because there is just so many.
Yeah.
Every day, every week, there's a new tool.
Oh yeah. It can get overwhelming, right? And these agents are, most of the times, they're at showings, they're at brokers opens, they're on the phone, they're driving around town, attending appointments and events. And so, you know, don't get overwhelmed. Just
Mm.
use it as a way, like I mentioned earlier, it's my co-pilot, it's an assistant. Look at it as just a way to help them and do their business in a more strategic, smarter way,
Yeah.
as it relates to building trust,
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, a luxury real estate agent isn't just selling a home, they're selling and validating lifestyle aspirations, especially for somebody of a certain net worth, right? So all of that has to come across in how you market a property, or
Mhm.
development. So
Okay. Okay. And then I suppose we're going back into the real estate space here. I was speaking to a client and a friend,
mhm,
and we were talking about virtual tours. And his point, which honestly I didn't actually think of, and I'd love to hear your take on this,
mhm,
was sometimes you can give too much. So say if we have virtual tour, VR, say if we
yeah,
have the whole experience to the point where a potential buyer can
yeah,
pretty much tour the property almost one of one as if they were there, and you're not really getting that conversation to, you're not really having a chance to have a conversation at all, or tell the story, or I suppose pitch them the idea. Do you
right.
think there's do you think there's a need for a little bit of mystery with certain listings, or do you think the
Mhm.
more we can give online to the more people, the better?
That's a great question. And after COVID and the pandemic, we had there was a program, a software called Matterport that
Mm.
really took off. I mean, everybody was saying that it was going to be the next biggest thing. And even the new Sotheby's, website included certain single listing websites that had Matterport
Mm.
included. But that's another thing, like the metaverse, that I think in these last couple of years has sort of gone away as markets have opened up post COVID. Matterport, I don't really know where it stands now. I don't see it as often. It was those 3D virtual tours that you're thinking about. And also, I know back in the day during the pandemic that a lot of, well, a few properties I had heard about were actually sold via social media, like Facebook Live,
Mm.
and it was an agent walking somebody through a listing, right? And walking them through everything. So at that point, when the markets were closed and everybody was, a bit cautious, if you will,
Mm.
about, sharing personal space and whatnot. I think videos and virtual tours really did move the needle, and it was a great tool for an agent to have. And that was actually the only option out there, Ryan,
Yeah.
because of the pandemic. But now we're not in that place anymore. Now it's become what it was pre-COVID, and with vaccines out there and whatnot, and the markets are opening up. I do believe now that, to your point, it is nice to give a bit of a mystery. I think the agents who use 3D and virtual reality and virtual tours, the most effective are the ones who use it in a way to tease or whet the
Mm.
appetite of a potential client to learn more about the property by ultimately going to the property, right, and physically doing a tour. When you're investing millions and millions of dollars, you want to see really what you're buying, and you can't always translate that the best way through virtual reality or through a video. Now,
Mhm.
it's a great tool, but I am of the belief, like you said earlier, of using it to tease or preview. But to get the entire full-on tour, you need to do it in person, or meet
Yeah.
with an agent. And we have a property here in Miami, a new development, the 888 Brickell Dolce Gabbana Tower, and it's the first branded Dolce Gabbana tower in North America. And there's a virtual reality component to it. And I was in the sales gallery the other day watching this beautiful video of what the building is going to look like,
Mm.
and it transports you to Sicily, and it shows you where Dolce and Gabbana or one of them grew up, and you're at the beach and you're looking at the water, and then you look at the building and you see the social and common areas, and you see the
Mm.
gold plated tables that are going to be in the restaurant or the bar of the building. And that's exciting, but there's nothing like going to the actual sales gallery and
Yeah.
seeing it, touching it physically, looking at it with your own eyes. I think that's important at the end of the day. You still need that true experience.
Yeah. I'm with you there. Like I
Yeah.
said, it was a bit of a curveball. I wouldn't have thought. It wasn't something that we ever really pushed. It was the same as a Matterport, exactly as you said. It was
Remember?
yeah, yeah. Okay. So let's not rapid fire, but in your opinion, what is for luxury marketing, luxury real estate, what is the number one mistake that you are seeing agents make right now?
Oh my, I don't like to think negatively or think about mistakes.
Okay, let's flip it. What is the best thing you see agents doing right now consistently?
I think it's video. I think that is what's really moved the needle for some of our top agents here in South Florida, not just with Sotheby's, but with Douglas Elliman and some of other competing brokerages. If an agent really has a great online presence, I would encourage an agent also, if they don't, to maybe invest in some coaching, some improv
Mm.
classes and whatnot. I think an agent, when they have an online presence and they're brilliant at their video tours of these properties, it really helps move the needle to me. And also that gives the potential buyer an idea on what that agent's personality is like, because ultimately you
Mm.
want to buy from someone that you could be friends with, right? Or that you
Mhm.
can get along with. And so it's not just about showing the property, but it's also about showing the agent's personality. So I'm a big believer on video, and video could be across YouTube, across Instagram, across Facebook, all of the main social channels out there. I'm a big believer, and I think that's really what's helping agents move the needle. That's why you do see so many agents out there, but it's that agent finding a niche. For example, we had one agent who had a $10 million condo for sale at the St. Regis Bell Harbor. And this particular agent was trying to find a way to sell this property in a unique manner online through video. And so we were brainstorming, and this particular agent is a brilliant cook. She loves, cooking, and in the past she has created videos around her making things. And so we came up with an idea of her cooking in the kitchen of this listing.
Mm.
And it can be something like, if you're an agent that loves art, it can be an agent painting in the balcony or in the patio of a luxury listing or whatever it is. Or if you're an agent that loves to work out, maybe, for example, the listing has a gym, film a video working out in the gym. Or if you're a wine sommelier and the listing has a wine, a winery, wine refrigerator, you have that agent actually going through different types of wine, in the listing. There's so many cool things. And like I mentioned, social is aspirational. It's entertainment. People go there to be amused and to learn about listings and real estate. So have fun with it. But video is the big one there, Ryan.
Okay. I love what you said about the the niche there for if you're into food, if you like painting, if you like wine. I was talking to a client yesterday, and we were kind of talking about agents who stand out, agents who are trying to stand out, and then agents who I suppose are trying too hard to stand out. So especially online, where a lot of the time people are they're using the same blueprint, they're kind of singing from the same hymn sheet,
Yeah.
no one's trying to reinvent the wheel. But I know we said video and niche and your specific interests, but what do you think are some ways that agents can stand out without trying too hard?
Yeah, I think, combining it with that whole lifestyle and aspirational, we're talking to discerning audiences here. They can smell, the BS, just like you mentioned, especially if you're an agent that's too gimmicky. I think it's just about building trust and keeping it authentic at the end of the day. Make sure that you're humble in nature, that you're grounded, that you create content that would appeal to this ultra high net worth person. Think about all of those things when you're creating and crafting your campaign as well. It's just about keeping it authentic, Ryan, and just to build that trust. Singing and dancing and all of those things, like on TikTok, for example, I think those are one of the gimmicky things, right, that you've mentioned. People read right through that. There's no way you're going to get a serious lead through dancing through. I mean, maybe you would. I don't know. Maybe that's your niche. But I would just say keep it authentic. Authenticity is a key word here that I would encourage agents when you're coming across on digital and you're creating video content around a listing. Just keep it authentic, but also find your niche. I will say that too. Like I mentioned earlier, find your niche, find something that you can combine, that you enjoy, that maybe that listing has, and create content around that. I think that would be great. Yeah.
Okay. I'm with you. I think this will be a good one to wrap this up on, unless you have any other golden nuggets to throw in before.
No, I think, we've spoken a lot about a lot of different topics, and I hope it's been helpful. It's been great chatting.
Yeah. So if we have a developer or a seller, let's say we have a 10, 20, $30 million property or development, and they have let's say it's a pretty big budget. Let's say, well, it's not infinite, but it's realistic. Let's say, $30, $40, $50,000. They want to go magazines, they want to go print ads, they want to go old school. What is your 60-second pitch to convince them to do digital?
Well, my biggest thing there, Ryan, is the fact that you can accurately track and measure your results from a digital campaign that you cannot do on newspaper or print. Whenever you invest $25,000 on a print ad, you never know how many people are going to pick up that magazine and see that ad. You can put a QR code or a vanity URL and try to track how many people go online. But if somebody's at a doctor's office reading a magazine, it's highly unlikely that they're going to click and go to, that website online to take action. I think also when it comes to investing, a lot of folks now really are looking at your ROI and your cost per lead, cost per action. You can look at impression levels, clicks, conversion rates, all of those data points you can do with digital that you really can't do online, you know, and also targeting. You can hope to target the right people with print and offline, but with digital, you really know who you're talking to because of the targeting and the parameters that you can build into a campaign to only show your ads to somebody with a net worth of over $8 million, right? On print, you never know who you're actually going to target. So that's my pitch. I don't know if it was probably less than 60 seconds. It doesn't take me long because I've been through this. I've been in this situation before, and my biggest thing is the fact that you can do reporting and you can analyze, and also with digital, last thing important is you can change things. You can optimize a campaign. For example, you can do A/B testing on an ad. You can test a picture of a listing with a, you know, maybe it's an infinity pool, and then you also have a, you know, a gourmet kitchen. You can test which ads really are more effective. You can't really do that online, you know. So so those are the two biggest ones: measurement, analytics, and reporting, and also creative optimization.
Okay. I suppose there's nothing worse than finding a typo after 10,000
That's
prints as well. So,
oh my goodness, no. That would be a disaster, especially after you're spending a lot of money, you know, on these print ads that are not cheap. And, you know, a lot of agents love direct mail pieces and you know, brochures, which is a component of marketing for sure. You know, people want a takeaway. But with digital, there's just so many more things you can do with it. It's just a very powerful medium. So,
Mark, appreciate you coming on.
thank you, Ryan. Thank you for having me. Let's definitely keep in touch, and I've appreciated the time. Thank you for inviting me here today, and I hope this has been helpful for all of your listeners and viewers.
Fantastic. Thanks.
All right. Cheers. Bye-bye.